and welcome to today's session on delivering knowledge and content services with Microsoft Viva Topics and SharePoint Syntex. I'm Chris McNulty, Director of Product Marketing for the Microsoft 365 Next Gen team. And I'm joined once again by my usual, frequent, and virtual presentation partner, Naomi Moneypenny.
Thanks so much, Chris. It's always a pleasure to be presenting with you and always a pleasure to talk with our amazing community. My name is Naomi Moneypenny. I am the Director of Product Development for SharePoint Syntex and Microsoft Viva Topics and some of the search functionality that you all interact with every day. And we're excited to talk to you a little bit more about knowledge and content services today.
Since our last session with you, there's been lots of big news that we've been able to share with the world. And so this is the first time Naomi and I have been able to talk in depth about SharePoint Syntex, Microsoft Viva Topics, and all of the goodness that we have coming up with knowledge and content services. So we'll spend a little bit of time introducing Viva, giving a little more context around Syntex and topics before we plunge into some of the technical skills that we think you'll be able to use to help deliver these solutions to your customers. So in February 2021, Jared Spataro and Satya Nadella introduced Microsoft Viva, our new branded employee experience platform. We know that the nature of work has changed tremendously over the past year. Digital transformation trends that were slow moving accelerated. As Satya said at one point, we've seen 2 years worth of transformation coming in 2 days. We also know that journey is going to play out in ways we can't fully anticipate. But we know from talking to customers, from spending time with analysts, and from listening to you that there's a focus on how do we make these changes more resilient? How do we make culture more sustainable? Paying attention to individual well-being, balanced with productivity. And at Microsoft, we think we have a unique opportunity now to go beyond a focus on collaboration and digitizing processes to really put people at the center. That's why we've introduced Microsoft Viva. Microsoft Viva has multiple aspects of employee experience, but it's designed to be a platform to help you integrate the best parts of employee experience from Microsoft solutions or from other solutions that you may have brought forward. For us, Viva is composed of 4 applications or modules. We have Viva Connections, which leverages the investments that you have in technologies like SharePoint and Yammer to be able to deliver an integrated experience to employees to help them focus on the right news with dashboards of the right activities delivered through Microsoft Teams. Next up, Viva Insights. Based on our investments in workplace analytics and related tech, Viva Insights uses privacy-protected data to help provide guidance to individuals, teams, and the organizations about ways to protect people's time, ensure that teams are being connected, and provide coaching on the best ways to balance individual productivity and organizational goals. Viva Topics is part of what was originally Project Cortex. Viva Topics uses AI to organize information into accessible knowledge, orchestrating those into topic pages, which are then delivered throughout the applications of Microsoft 365. And finally, Viva Learning takes the same idea, using the graph and connections out to some of your major learning providers, such as Coursera, edX, LinkedIn Learning, and more, able to bring formal and informal learning structured into the flow of work. We couldn't be more excited about the potential of Microsoft Viva. And on this mission, we're joined by a broad ecosystem of partners and integrations from around Microsoft and beyond, helping make sure that if you have information that lives somewhere outside of Microsoft 365, you have a way to be able to create the best solution for your employees moving forward. In the end, what we think makes Viva unique are 5 core principles. First, it helps you organize aspects of employee experience into what Gartner has termed that digital hub for getting work done in the organization. For us, that is Microsoft Teams. Secondly, we put people at the center, taking advantage of all of those integrations to bring aspects of employee experience directly into the flow of work. Third, it's based on the Microsoft Graph. So we're using AI to personalize those experiences around Viva and beyond to make sure that people get the right information at the right time that helps them take the right actions. Fourth, Microsoft Viva lives inside of your Microsoft 365 trust boundaries. So the security, privacy, and compliance that you can count on from Microsoft is extended to employee experience. And lastly, it is, as we've said before, it is a platform as much as a set of applications, helping you integrate those experiences moving forward to deliver the right employee experience to your workforces. From our perspective, the journey that we've been on to deliver knowledge and content services in conjunction with Viva has two major components. We know that getting the right information to the right people is essential. We've heard a lot over the past year that the amount of time, based on our research, that people spend looking for or recreating knowledge that already exists can approach nearly an hour every day or 7 weeks a year. We also know, based on our research, that that problem has just gotten worse. Some studies have shown this is 3 times worse than it was just back in 2016. And we think our tools can help people capture expertise and scale that into knowledge that they can deliver throughout their organization. For us, this comprises 2 core components. First, SharePoint Syntex. First introduced late last year, SharePoint Syntex helps you orchestrate expertise into a series of no-code AI models that work with content and learn from the way you interact with it to be able to start building models that I can bring into a processing environment, into digital capture. How do I make sure that as content is coming into my cloud, I can see what kind of content is it? Is this a contract? Is this a purchase order? And not just recognize it, but pull the key data out of it, the people, the facts, the figures, the locations, all with being able to attach the right compliance and security policies to it. Enriching content is essential for precision in workflow, in search, in compliance. But more importantly, it helps make that information even more meaningful in the context of knowledge. Viva Topics uses AI to organize information that lives inside of Microsoft 365 and the expertise that surrounds that into topics. Topics are orchestrated into topic pages. You can think of them as being like an institutional Wikipedia. AI does the first draft, and then your experts come in to approve, review, and curate the content that lives on those topic pages. And then topic pages extend throughout Microsoft 365 into places like SharePoint, Outlook, Office, and Teams using topic cards to give you capsule summaries of the key information that you need to use to help address your immediate questions. When you see an unfamiliar acronym or a project name that you're not connected to, the answers are usually just 1 click away using Viva Topics. And so that's the business mission that we're on. Now I'd like to bring Naomi back on to help talk through some of the technology that sits around Viva Topics and SharePoint Syntex. Naomi?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. So it was a really great overview. So I appreciate that on understanding what Microsoft Viva is. So let me go 1 level higher so that we can go a whole bunch of levels lower. So bear with me as we go on this little journey. We talked about Microsoft Viva, and Chris shared that great stat that we had that says, hey, people are spending an hour every day looking for and searching for information just to be able to get their job done. Now, when you magnify that across an organization, this really is about how do I improve the business performance of my company, of my organization generally. And so with that mission of improving business performance, there's often kind of 2 sides of the same coin. So there's one side that says, hey, I need to help people be more productive in their everyday work. I need to help them with automation, understand some of the rote tasks that they're doing. Where can AI help me with that? And then we also want to just make sure that we're saving time and saving money, right? We've got an efficiency drive inside of an organization. We've got to be doing more with less. So there's that side of the coin, which is really around productivity and efficiency. Now, the other part of business performance is really going back to that quote that I love so much, and hopefully many of you have heard by now. The only sustainable competitive advantage is learning to learn faster than your competitors. So when you think about that sustainable competitive advantage, our ability to learn faster is really about how we ingest information, and then how do we think about ingesting that information such that we can turn it into action and put it to work, right? Because all of that information is kind of meaningless if it doesn't help us with a decision. So we really want to think about improving business performance in terms of I'm growing new things inside of my organization, I'm growing capabilities. And so when I manage knowledge inside of my company, I'm helping people to connect to each other, I'm helping people to connect to the information and the resources that they need, and I have a conscious strategy of actually making that happen inside of my organization. So on the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about business performance and how this connects to the products that we're developing. So the first thing is just understanding where you want to get started inside of your company. Now, there's lots of opportunities across your organization, and you're like, everything might seem a bit overwhelming of like, hey, I know I need to improve the business performance in my company, but what can I do to get started myself? And so you want to look at the organizational priorities that you have. You understand a little bit more about the culture that you have inside of your organization. Are you a company that really requires a lot of ROI to get started? Do you want to start very small with something and say, hey, let's make this a repeatable experiment inside of the company? And we also want to look at also the appetite for change that you have in your organization. And so improving business performance is all of these different elements, right? But you also have to be ready inside of your company to be able to do things. And so I wanted to give a couple of examples, again, of this two sides of that same improving our business performance coin. So on the first side, Syntex is really around saving you time and saving you money. And that translates into some of these example use cases. Now, these are not use cases that I just came up with and brainstormed so that we'd have them on this great chart. These are use cases that actually came from many of our customers who've been in preview and actually rolling out Syntex. And so it was really interesting to see the whole gamut of use cases that they have. And I encourage you to explore these kinds of opportunities inside of your business. Now, the first one is really talking about product design and product development. I'm thinking through, like, when I'm actually creating something new inside of our organization, how can we help to make sure that we've got all of consistent information? How can we actually index and mine what we need from that information that's coming in? And then making sure that that's part of what we're doing going forward. So it could be something as simple as, we're getting a bunch of manufacturer data sheets that are coming in. We want to be able to extract that information and move it along in a process. Or it could be something as simple as understanding just a bunch of vendor proposals that are coming in as well, and being able to extract that information and move that along my business process. The other piece that came through was really clear for us was this kind of risk avoidance, because oftentimes if you're on this journey to digital transformation, you're overwhelmed. There's a bunch of paper, maybe it's sitting out in a warehouse somewhere, or you're trying to digitize all that paper coming into your organization. And you're like, hey, I don't even know what's in some of this stuff. I need to go through and figure it out. And like, where should I actually pay attention? And so in this case, being able to set up a model inside of your company that says, hey, just when I'm scanning this paper in, I could look for things like a date that I need to worry about, a compliance area, look at those areas and be able to identify that information and then just keep a digital record of that. And so on that improvement scale of digital transformation, it's incredibly important to keep track of like what risk you're mitigating and hopefully helping you with future compliance scenarios too. Now, a couple of other ones, contracts understanding, it's probably one of my favorite ones. So if you've ever seen demos of SharePoint Syntex before, you'll know that contracts in particular are ones that we think are really rich area to explore. So there's a whole bunch of things within contracts, for example, the language that gets used in there, and there are multiple different clauses within those contracts. And so if you've ever read one of those contractual agreements, thinking about assignors and assignees or exhibits and all those different areas, it can get very confusing very quickly of what date is applying to what area. What's this clause mean? How does this actually relate to these other parties within the contract? And so imagine the ability to actually be able to create a model that is tuned to the language inside of that contract and being able to figure out that information, extract it automatically when one of those contracts comes in. And then again, I get to extract that metadata and then push it along my workflow using Power Automate or other business process tools. Now, this is a great start, right? And you think, hey, this is awesome. These use cases are very pointy, and I'm sure there's even more inside of your company too. But we want to do even more, right? We want to put you in an even better place because this is really about learning to learn faster inside of an organization. And so there's a couple of superchargers that I wanted to mention on here. The first thing is that as you're in the process of subject matter experts inside of your organization, the folks who are closest to the business process, who are making decisions on this information, those are the folks who are able to author these models, right? We try to make it easy. It's like a spreadsheet, if you will. So if you've ever had that experience where you've built a spreadsheet, many of us have, you really have a trust with that spreadsheet, right? You understand where things are coming from. You understand the values that are happening inside of that spreadsheet, where this information is coming from. And it's the same partnership we think about people and AI in this case. We're taking that know-how that's in the minds of people and helping to encode it into a model. And they build trust with the model because as a subject matter expert, you've built the model, you understand how this thing works. You're helping to teach the machine what is going on, and then you're also building that trust as you do so. So you understand that when it's processing that information that's coming in, where it's getting that data from, it's not some black box that you had nothing to do with training or doesn't fit for my particular data or the information that I'm dealing with. We really want to put you in a great place so that you're able to supercharge that information and then think through of like how I'm encoding the know-how that's in my head into a model that other people in the organization can use, right? You want people to be able to build on top of what you're already doing. So with Syntex, we've got very strong ROI. We've got very specific use cases that you can go after and identify inside of your organization, something you can test on a smaller scale inside of your company, see how that helps to accelerate that workflow. And then you also get these supercharges of, hey, I'm encoding what I know into this model, and then I can take that structured information and I can help map it into what I might do with topics. Now with topics, it's really about understanding how we're managing knowledge, and it really is a conscious strategy. It's a decision that you're thinking through about how do I enable best practice sharing inside of my organization? How do I enable for knowledge to come through inside of my company in great ways that help me in the context of work? And so we got a bunch of example use cases. Again, these came from our customers. These are not out of my brain. These are things that customers mentioned. And I think it's things that we can all resonate with. I need to find information. We just heard, like, it spends an hour every day looking for information. I need to find the people who are related to a particular topic or a project. I need to avoid duplication of effort inside of my company. If only I knew what we knew inside of the company, maybe I could be able to avoid duplication. We could move our work along faster. And then most importantly is a cold start problem, right? If you've ever started a new project or you're changing role inside of your organization, again, those are things where having Viva Topics can really help you. Now, our superchargers are a little bit different here. Number one, there's always that efficiency thing that comes into mind of like, again, if I knew what was going on inside of the company or I had some understanding of what went on in the past, I could actually do more with less, right? And being able to produce that as part of this. Now, the other big thing is really thinking through what we're doing with Viva Topics. Now, it's exciting, right, to think through. I could discover information as part of my organization. I could bring that information together, and I'm helping to sort of aggregate that knowledge. But aggregation is really only the first part. When we've brought together these topic pages and thought about the experts, the files and the pages, the suggested resources and those connections all together, then we want to do even more. We actually want this to be a platform for innovation inside of your organization. Because once everybody has understanding and has shared knowledge, you can do even more with that as well. So I wanted to just show you quickly a few experiences and just show you a little bit about where we are with the products right now, and then be able to transition just a little bit into our roadmap and some of the resources that we have. Great, so let's have a little bit of a demo of the existing experiences that we have for both SharePoint Syntex and Viva Topics. Now, I'm going to go really quickly, and I'm sorry about that, folks, because there's so much to show you, but we have a bunch of resources that we're going to go over at the end where there's lots of in-depth sessions, including a step-by-step on how to build a model, how to set up these admin experiences that I'm going to show you quickly, and then a little bit more about how Topics works. And of course, we have some great documentation that's out there as well. First off, I wanted to show you just a little bit about the admin experiences, because if you're looking at Viva Topics and you're going, gosh, how do I even set this up inside of my company? And, you know, how does it even figure out what topics it needs to discover and where does all of that come from? Well, rest assured, we have a great admin experience for this. So you need to be a global administrator in Microsoft 365. And so in this tab here, you can see connecting people to knowledge, and you can actually set this up for your organization. Now, of course, I've already set one up, but we're going to show you just some of the options as part of this too. Now, there is a great set of documentation, as I mentioned earlier. So in here as a global administrator, you can come in, you can learn a little bit more about what it is you're doing, and you can see when this is actually active and actually working inside of your organization as well. Now, when I click on this Manage Topics area here, it'll actually help me and walk me through the different stages. So the first thing is being able to actually set up like the scope of where it gets topics from inside of your company. And so again, this can be as big or as small as you want inside of your organization. So right now we're looking at sort of your SharePoint intranet effectively and all of the files and sites that are in there. Now, you can actually set this to a different scope if you want. I'd recommend from a default perspective, if you can set to all sites, that really works well. Being able to use all of that information is a great thing. Now, if I wanted to go in and edit this, I could actually go here, I can check through and look at these different options. Now, the other piece of this is like, I often get that question of like, hey, if I want to exclude different topics inside of my organization, remember that Viva Topics is a knowledge sharing system, right? This does not replace the privacy, the security controls that you already have, but it totally abides by all of the security controls you already have in place. Viva Topics doesn't change any of the permissions that you have inside of your organization, the documents, the file structures, anything else. It doesn't change any of those things. But you can also specify up front if you think there are topics that are specifically things that you need to exclude. So I often get the question about, hey, what about a specific project inside of my organization? Maybe we're looking at, mergers and acquisitions information, and we never want that stuff to be, mentioned, even if somebody by accident has put something in the wrong place inside of SharePoint. So even if somebody's put very sensitive information and they put it in a public folder that everybody in the company would be able to access, I still want to be able to exclude that topic from being discovered. And so this is a great way to be able to do this. And so I would recommend to spend a little bit of time to think through inside of your company where there are specific topics areas that you want to exclude. So if you have some exclusion names, you can just list this out here. It's pretty simple. You're just going to provide a list. And usually, frankly, your legal folks inside of your organization may already have that list generated of things that are kind of sensitive and you never want to have happen. So that's a great way to be able to exclude that information. Again, here with the SharePoint sites, I can actually say all sites, and I can say all except specific sites as well, and then only selected sites. Again, my recommendation is to set it to all, because that way it gets the broadest amount of topic discovery and gives you an idea of what you can see inside of your organization. Now, don't worry, by setting this up, it does not switch it on for everybody inside of the company and massive things are going to happen. You can very, very clearly say, hey, this is just a couple people who are going to see access to this information and be able to see what the topics look like before anybody else inside of the company looks at it. So I just want to be very clear there. Now, let's talk about that a little bit more. So topic visibility. You want to see who can actually see these topics inside of your organization. And so you need to have group admin permissions, and I can set this here as well. So in this case, I can say these are very selected people inside of my organization who have access to be able to see these topics. And so that's an admin in this case and a few people that may be on the project team that are getting started. Again, this is something you can change over time, right? You can say over time, if everyone in my organization has access, that's great. That's the state we want you to get to. But we recognize on the way there, we want to just make sure, hey, this is how things are coming out for the first time. And I can see some of that information and make some decisions on it as well. Okay, so once you've sorted that piece out, you can actually say within those topics themselves, like so people can actually see that topic visibility area. And then within those topics, you can actually say who can even create and edit these as well, and then who can manage them. So they have this idea of kind of that knowledge manager role. And that's really someone who can see a whole breadth of topics across your organization. They only see the topics that they have access to, which is an important thing too. And then that you can even say within that who has permission to create and edit those topics. So you have lots of levels here of like making sure that you feel control. You have control over the experience of when your Viva Topics is working for you. But ultimately, it gives you a great way to be able to crowdsource this information across your organization as well. This is just an important value proposition of making knowledge sharing accessible for everybody inside of your company and providing a great way to do that. Now we have a topic center idea here with SharePoint slides here. So the topic center itself is a destination where you'll be able to see web parts that are specific to you to say, here's some topics that are of interest to you as just an end user, but it also helps to get information for knowledge managers and helps to aggregate which topics they can manage inside of your organization too. The first time out of the gate, you'll need to create a topic center. It's very easy. It's just a type of SharePoint site and we automate that experience for you. Again, you should pick something that's relevant for your whole organization. Right now, you can only have one topic center inside of your organization. So, pick the address well as part of that. Now, the next set of experiences I wanted to show you is just a little bit more about SharePoint Syntex. Now, SharePoint Syntex has an admin experience as well. I don't have time to go set that up, but it also creates a content center as part of that. Now, that content center is something that we're definitely improving as a destination. We've heard loud and clear some customer feedback as we've released the product and saying, hey, we want a better destination. But know that when you first come to SharePoint Syntex, this is kind of the content center that you're going to get. It helps you to understand how to build a model and understands a little bit more about how your models are performing. There's a tour here that helps you to understand and create that model as well. Now, when I've created a model, I'll actually get a nice experience here that helps me to understand a little bit more about that particular area. And so as an end user or subject matter expert, I need to have some understanding, right? I'm going to spend a little bit of time, probably an hour or two, to build a model for the first time. And we try to make that simple of understanding, hey, these are things that you need to gather basically to help you to create that model. So in this case, we're going to, build out 5 files of the same types. And we also want to have, examples of things that are not those specific areas as well. And we want to think through this, very carefully, because that partnership here, again, between people and AI is important, right? We're going to give examples to the machine, a small set of examples, probably ones you already have in your desktop or in your email or in a SharePoint library somewhere. But we also want to give it an example of what it is not. And so it's an important thing. Oftentimes we learn in life, right? When something is not something, it's a much faster learning point than when something is. And so we can actually help the machine go quicker with that. So it helps you with this experience to gather up those training files and then figure out these different examples and then how to actually build the explanations as part of that. So those are the things you'll need to gather as a subject matter expert and help to create those models. Now, in this case, you can see I've got an example one that's been imported. We do have one that's imported as part of this too, so you can easily add that into SharePoint Syntex if you just want to play with it for the first time. And I also do recommend the documentation too. Now I can look at these example files here, and then I can look at things like creating extractors and be able to train that information in here too. Now we could take a look at one of the extractors that's already here. So in this case, I'm going to look at this discount percentage extractor. And you can see here's some of those example documents that I already have. Those have been labeled. I've actually gone through and say, hey, this is the actual percentage that I need to extract. Look for it in this part of the model as part of this too. And then I can actually train after this too. And then once I've done all of this, and I've set up that extractor, I can then test this particular model. So in this case, you can see where there's predictions, and it's going to say, yes, I predicted it correctly. So I taught it where to look basically as part of this and say, yes, this is the right thing, and it's looking good. So that's great. And then I can go to the next file and I can see where it's going to take that prediction. You can see these predictions are changing on the side here as well. And it's really important because you want that interactive feedback, right? When you're sitting down, you're building this model for the first time, I need to be able to see that partnership again. AI is helping me to understand, right, what's going on, and then being able to build that as part of what I'm doing and see the results as I go, right? It's not, again, some black box that's processing somewhere. The first time when you're actually building these things and you want that interactive experience. Once you've actually built the model, then it's kind of a set it and forget it, right? Go run this thing on top of the libraries that I already have inside of SharePoint, go to town on running this stuff. But when I'm first building the model, I want to take that time. It's important to look at those different cues as part of this. So we're excited for a lot of things that are happening there with SharePoint Syntex and actually what more we can build as part of that. So I mentioned some of those improvements that we had earlier too. So sorry to jump into a different experience, but I wanted to look a little bit about the end user experiences that we have for Viva Topics. Now, when I mentioned earlier, when you're part of that setup process for Viva Topics, I want to make sure that the folks that are seeing this information as an end user, like they have control over how they're connected with specific topics. And so this is one of the web parts that we have available as part of what we're doing with Viva Topics. Now, this web part is personalized to you. It actually says, hey, I found you listed on these particular topics. So again, AI has gone off. It's going scurrying through all of your information inside of your organization. And it's like, hey, these people have something to do with these topics. And I've brought a bunch of files as well, and I brought those information in too. And so it's great that it'd be able to make those connections, but it wants to check with you, right? Because it's AI. It's not really sure, but it wants to make sure and say, hey, is this really part of what you work on every day? And so in this case, you can see I've got a range of topics that are suggested to me. So I want to make sure that you understand like the connections that are being built here and just see some of the details that we've built into the product. Now, the first thing is we have a range of topics across here. Now, you'll see that some of them are mentioned as suggested topics, and some of these are actually topics that have already been confirmed. Now, when something has been confirmed, that means that, a knowledge manager or another subject matter expert inside of your company might have confirmed this as a real topic. Yes, it's a real thing inside of our org, and it should be tracked as a topic. Now, a suggested topic is something where AI is just kind of thinking like, hey, I think there's something here based on all of that information that I processed inside of your organization. It seems like there's an agglomeration, right, that says, hey, this feels like a topic inside of your company. And then it actually says why you're even seeing this. So in this case, you can see I've got suggested topics here that say you've contributed to these resources. And that's essentially how Viva Topics is working. That AI behind the scenes is processing through all that information, and it says, hey, look, I made sure that you're actually connected to these resources. You're a person that's associated with these resources because you helped co-author them, or you edited them at some point, or you were working on them. And so we can actually figure out that connection there. Now, in this case, it's actually extracted things like an explanation directly here, and that explanation has come from a source document. And so if I have trust to the source document, I understand where AI has got this from. And it's just an important piece here to, understand like how AI is making sure that we're making it very transparent, where we get this information from, why you're even connected to something is because you worked on those documents, and then where we're sourcing that explanation from here as well. Now you have control, right? You get to say, hey, I want to be, connected to these topics or not. It doesn't say you're a subject matter expert. It just says I'm a person and I'm in some way, shape or form connected to this topic. And you can choose to be listed there or not, as the case may be. So this is a great one. If your role changes or if something you worked on in the past, or you're like, I don't want to be connected to this, you can remove that connection as part of this too. Now here's some confirmed connections that already happened. So in this case, I say, yes, I'm definitely connected with these particular topics. And so I can actually pin myself on there if I'm the person that folks should come and talk to. That's a great example here. And then you can see here, I can actually add my connection directly on here. And then I could also see what the activity of what's going on that topic. So even though it's something that I'm connected with, I actually want to be able to keep up to date with it, right? And see, what's going on, what other topics have been connected here. In this case, you can see how many folks have actually actively edited the page or viewed the topic. And so I get some benefit, right, of understanding of like, hey, I'm contributing into this topic, and I get some understanding about, who's actually using this information, how useful it is inside of my company. So it's just an important piece there to be able to show you. Now, as I mentioned, this is a web part. So if you already have awesome intranet destinations that are based on SharePoint inside of your company, you can put this web part any place you like, right? You don't have to build a specific topic center unless you want to for your organization. You can take that web part and float it up into all kinds of destinations that make it useful. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, you can definitely make sure that it's just a certain group of folks at the beginning who see this information, right? And we want to make sure that you have a great experience as part of that. Now, that's as an end user. Those are some of the things that you might see. And then I'm going to click into Manage Topics here as well. And so with Manage Topics, this is something I see because I'm a knowledge manager inside of my organization. This list is all curated here. So this list is curated to my permissions. And so it's only things that I have access to. So even though there's a whole bunch of topics that are inside of my organization, I may not have access to all of the information and the source resources below them. And so I only see, again, the things that I have access to. We don't want to be able to give, permissions to see something that perhaps we've never seen normally inside of your organization, because we recognize that knowledge managers, right, it might be a position that's formal inside of your organization, or it might just be a bunch of folks who are working on these particular areas. And so we don't want to break anything about security or permissions by doing that. There's a couple things that I want to draw your attention to. First thing here is to be able to show that, we have 65 suggested topics as part of this organization. So again, it's mining through all that information, it's looking for it, and it helps you to understand a little bit more about where this came through. And you can actually understand a little bit more about access as part of this. Now, you may be saying, well, that's a lot of stuff, right? I could have 65, I could have thousands on here. Well, how do I focus my time as a knowledge manager? And there's a couple things that we've done to implement that. The first thing is to understand this quality score here. And this quality score actually helps you to understand where to be spending your time around understanding how much information has already been populated by AI. So if you just want to be like, hey, these are the things that AI has already taken a first cut at, and we know it's a lot faster, right, if something's already taken a first cut. And so I can see that information directly in here. Now, the other thing that helps you maybe structure your time is understanding just how many people have actually visited these pages. And so it's a great way to be able to see here, something that's high quality. I've already got a bunch of information, but I can also see that in this case that, a bunch of people are looking for this information. So it helps me to focus my time when I might have, thousands of topics inside of my organization. Now, if I wanted to check out this particular topic, so I can actually, click through here. In this case, I'm going to see Yammer. Here's that population card here. So that topic card is being populated by Viva Topics. And so in this case, you can see it's just a suggested topic. Nobody's confirmed it yet. AI has basically helped to discover all of the information that's in here already. Now, in this case, it's a product name, but inside of your organization, it might be a project. It might be something else that's part of there too. Now, in this case, we can see the page coming up. And so Yammer, has extracted this information automatically. Again, that full transparency here on, where it's sourcing that information. You can see that there are suggested people. Again, these are folks that have somehow contributed to the resources that made up this topic. And so it's asking for, help here to make sure that those are the right set of people. And then you can see here, I've got a bunch of suggested files and pages. So in this case, could be PDFs, it could be other things as well. So I just wanted to show you that because that's a completely AI generated page. It helps me to get that first cut. And then I, as a knowledge manager or the subject matter expert, I can come in and actually edit this page and make it easy, which I do very simply from this experience here. Now, let's go through and look at a page that's already been curated. So in this case, I have the SharePoint product page. And so this might be just a product inside of your organization. These are just obviously simple examples here. Now you can see that I've gone in and edited this page and I've got some alternate names in this case. So some of these have been discovered automatically and some of them have been things that people have populated. And this is so useful inside of your company, right? When you know something had a name before, it might have been called a different project before, I can put that information directly in here. Now you can also see that, SharePoint in this case, so this explanation here, we try to give you some starter set as you saw on that previous example with Yammer, but in this case with the SharePoint page itself, we're able to take this information and put it as part of this here, and I can curate that. Now there's a bunch of documents that are in here too, so I can add in multiple web parts here and help me to see some of the most recent activity that's going on inside of this particular topic. And because this is again a SharePoint page, I can go in, I can make modifications as necessary. And I can even do things like being able to pin people directly in here as well. So in this case, I know I can say this is a person, I'm confirming them basically as something to do with this topic and being able to add them directly in here. And then here's the topic map that helps me to understand connections to other topics. Now I can go in and I can edit this directly in here and be able to make those connections to these particular topics. And we'll also have some tech to help suggest those topics as well. So that was just a quick overview of many of the great experiences that we have already inside of SharePoint Syntex and Viva Topics. And obviously we're enriching it even more as well.
Naomi, that was wonderful. I think there are a lot of things that we all can learn about to help get ready for doing more with Viva Topics and with Syntex. So probably we should give people a little bit more detailed preview of what to look for coming up, right?
So yes, let's talk about roadmap and resources next, Chris. I know we have lots of resources that folks can share and learn a little bit about the products that we already have that are in market and also what's coming up next.
I'm always excited to take a look forward. Naomi, what are some of the things our customers can hope for seeing later on this year?
Yeah, so it's going to be a busy year, both with Viva Topics and SharePoint Syntex. So we have a range of new capabilities that are coming up. So from the experiences side, we want to make it even easier for you as an end user, both to understand where topics are going to surface up inside of your organization. So things like being able to see topic cards and topic pages within different experiences inside of Microsoft 365. We also want to help bring some really great tools to our knowledge managers. Now, we know that when really large organizations turn on Viva Topics for the first time, they get lots and lots of different topics. And so you might be asking some of those questions of, well, how do you help disambiguate some of those topics? Or we use the same acronym and it means all kinds of different things inside of our organization. So we're going to have even better tools for that. We already do some of those capabilities and some disambiguation that's happening automatically, but we want to make those even stronger as well. Now, the other big piece of this is understanding the different types of topics that you have inside of your organization. We've often heard that a little bit of kind of categorization of those topics, where something is a project or a product or a customer, a campaign or an initiative inside of your organization. And we want to think about that support in there to help you understand the categories and the types of topics you have in your company. And that'll help to also do some of that disambiguation too. Now, on the Syntex side for individual sort of end user experiences, we're going to do a bunch of things, as I mentioned earlier. So some of those top requested customer features, those are coming very, very soon, and you'll have access to those capabilities directly into the Syntex end user experience. But we also want to add in a whole bunch of other things, understanding things like managed metadata support and being able to connect that information. So some of those advanced areas like content types, being able to map that to manage metadata capabilities, and then things like retention labels. So if you have something like forms processing where you're taking a bunch of structured forms and very specific information, as part of that, we want to be able to attach the retention label directly to it as well. Now, those are some of the end user experiences and thinking about what we can do there. But on that foundational layer, there's a bunch of things we want to do. And so the first thing with Viva Topics is making sure that the ecosystem, right, that data estate that you have inside of your company is represented. And so having graph connected content is part of that, using the Microsoft Search graph connectors. So for content such as ServiceNow and MediaWiki, and making that available as well in the knowledge indexing too. And then importantly, some shared components, both in the topic card itself, as well as looking at our API for topics inside of the Microsoft Graph. And the same thing is true on the SharePoint Syntex side. As I mentioned, we want to work on some pre-built models, making it easier for you to be able to consume that information quickly, that partnership between people and AI, where we're helping to suggest things where we kind of know something about it and need your confirmation there. And then making sure we have great capabilities to help with model management across an entire organization and reuse of models. And then also some APIs there too, right? There's a bunch of work we want to do both with communities to understand models themselves and being able to make those downloadable essentially for folks and being able to contribute that across the wider SharePoint community. But we also want to make sure we have some scripts in there too to help you with things like batch operations if you need to. And so really helping with that foundation, again, looking across that data estate, making sure it fits into whatever your business process is as well.
So let's just summarize: more cloud, more languages, more developer support, and more end user experiences.
Love it. Yes.
Love it. There are a lot of places to plug in. One thing we're particularly proud of is our Content Services Partner Program. We have dozens of partners that we've already trained to help you implement, envision, and support. We have programs for these partners to be able to come into your organizations, to deliver workshops, and to set up pilots for you. So please reach out to one of these partners or to someone at Microsoft if you're looking for more specific help. We know these are early days, but there's a lot of that you can learn from. You can also learn from each other. One of the great examples that we have from our preview program is Mott MacDonald. Mott MacDonald believes in the idea of connected thinking, that together we can accomplish more than by working individually. They have that very common problem of people moving from project to project, needing to make sure that their information is captured for their successors in the last project, and that there's a way for them to rapidly get up to speed on their next engagement. So information about our partners, Mott MacDonald and more, is all available online. These are just some of the URLs you can go to for more details on Viva, about topics, Syntex, our partners, and additionally, our resource center, where you can see all this and more: white papers, analyst reports, demos, videos, everything that we have for you, we make it available to you online. So that's it. Thank you so much for joining us. Naomi, thank you for being my partner on this journey.
And likewise, Chris, it's always a privilege, always a pleasure to both speak with you and speak with everyone out there. I hope that you've learned a lot about what we're doing with Viva Topics and SharePoint Syntex and how we can help improve your business performance.